I guess that was my job. We're together. The proposed revision of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws identifies 6 values centered in love and inseparable from each other. On the 6th Sunday of the season, we call to mind the 6th such value, equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
We invite you to join us in singing hymn number 34 in the gray hymnal, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. And have the gift to all inspire, and have not one, my words are vain, as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving soul my love profess, and have not hid my love within, the prophet soon strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed, by this we worship and are free.
Good morning. I'm Barb Martin. My pronouns she, her, hers, and the celebrant for today.
And I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, Zizir, or he, him, interim minister.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Our building is located on land that has been home to various peoples in the last 12,000 years, including at the beginning of European encroachment, the Iowa, Sauk, and Meskwaki. These lands were also once home, in much greater numbers, to the now endangered whooping crane. As we enter this space, the ghosts of humans and other animals past are among us. Let us recommit to understanding the history of the land that it occupies and to owning our part in the work of education, reparation, and healing for all species.
Our purpose is to associate ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful to one another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
This bond of union is reiterated in our mission to grow ethically and spiritually, serve justly, and love radically.
It is a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone.
Today is the 6th Sunday of winter, a full moon called the wolf moon, was about equally full last Wednesday and Thursday, and it is now waning gibbous. On the pagan calendar, Thursday, February 1st is Imbolc, also referenced as St. Bridget's Day for Ireland's patroness saint. Imbolc celebrates the midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. The actual midpoint this year will be next Sunday, February 4 at 10:17 in the morning. So accordingly, we have an Imbolc observance scheduled for next week.
Friday will be Groundhog Day. So remember, just because you aren't stuck living the same day over and over doesn't mean you won't encounter someone who is. So on Friday, with everyone you meet, imagine that for them, this is the 1,000th time they've had this encounter. So for their sake, try to do something you probably didn't do all the other times. On the Christian calendar, February 2nd is Candlemas, commemorating the presentation of Jesus at the temple. And on the Christian liturgical calendar today is the 4th of the 6 Sundays of Ordinary Time between Epiphany and the beginning of Lent.
Now we know. A special welcome to our visitors. And if you are here with children, feel free to keep them seated with you, or there's also a petite play place in the back, or for the little ones, the babies and the up to
Jesus
2 years,
Christ.
childcare downstairs if you want to take advantage of that. Newcomers are invited to a UU Curiosity conversation on the first Sunday of every month. So that will be next week. We will have our little circle in the back. After church, you can get your coffee and snacks and join each other back there. Please mute your mics if you are listening on Zoom.
Our connection circles are small groups that gather to explore the monthly theme and build relationship. It's a key way that we live out our mission to grow ethically and spiritually. If you're not in one, please do sign up, become a part of a group. You can join at any time. Our theme for the month of January is pluralism, and our theme coming up for February is equity. The equity packet is now out, and a fairly limited number of copies are available just outside the door. We ran out of ledger-size paper, but we'll have more next week if you need one. So we begin with the lighting of our chalice.
Please say with me the chalice lighting words in your order of service. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. Our invocation is responsive reading in your gray hymnal number 591. Those on this side will be reading with me, and those on that side
We'll be responding with the indented italicized words.
I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence.
That sustaining and transformation power, not made with human hands.
It binds together families and generations, protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority.
This covenant is the charter and responsibility and joy of worship in the face of death as well as life.
I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship.
That protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to the Church Universal.
It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship.
It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, on an adventure of the Spirit.
The goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying, the other for the ministry of healing.
It aims to find unity in diversity under the promptings of the Spirit that bloweth where it listeth and maketh all things new.
Now join in the sung invocation. Words are in your order of service.
Good morning. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I am your faith formation and congregational life coordinator. Thank you for joining us today. Today's story wraps up our month of exploring pluralism, where we have been talking about how we embrace and celebrate one another's differences. And sometimes that's not comfortable for everybody. Sometimes it takes us a little time to work into accepting one another's differences and the things that make them unique. But when we get there to embracing the things that make one another special, that is when we might find things that surprise us. Today's story is Odd Velvet by Mary E. Whitcomb. On the first day of school, Velvet's classmates brought their teachers cinnamon tea, lace handkerchiefs, and heart-shaped boxes of potpourri. Velvet, however, handed her teacher an egg carton filled with 7 rocks. They are lovely rocks, but 7 rocks are a little odd. They were her favorite shoelaces in there as well. Half a sparrow's egg as well. Velvet was odd. At lunchtime, Velvet not only carried a used brown paper bag, but inside of it were things like carrots and butter sandwiches, and she ate them. At recess, a few of the girls noticed that Velvet was not wearing a new dress, even though it was the first day of school. Where did she come from even, they wondered out loud. All of this strangeness did not stop after the first day of school. In fact, it got worse. Velvet brought a milkweed pod of all things to show and tell. Luckily, though, 3 other girls brought a talking doll, a wedding doll, and a crying doll, and that saved the day. Velvet's nose was freckled. She had a plastic baggie with only 8 crayons, and her sweater once belonged to her older sister. Nothing was right about Odd Velvet. Although everyone was polite to her, no one was silly enough to pick Velvet for partner play or to walk home with her after school. No one wanted to be different the way Velvet was different. On the day of the school field trip, the children were laughing and calling each other by their nicknames. Someone called out, though, "Velvet, what's your nickname?" It got quiet as Velvet looked around.
I don't have one, but my father told me that on the day I was born, the sun was rising over the mountains, and outside it looked as though the world had been covered with a blanket of smooth, soft lavender velvet.
A few of the boys began to giggle, but mostly the bus fell silent. For a moment, everybody was thinking about how beautiful that morning must have been the day that Velvet was born. The following week, the school announced a drawing contest, and there was no question who the winner would be. Sarah Garvey had the best markers, the biggest paint set, and more colored pencils than anyone else in the class. When the day arrived to announce the winner, the children let Sarah sit right up front. No one was more surprised than she, however, when the teacher called out Velvet's name. Velvet was the winner. Velvet had drawn an apple. "It's just a piece of fruit," said Sarah Garvey. Everyone stared at the picture, though, completely entranced. "It looks so real, I could eat it," someone said. "It seems like you could pick it up right off the page," said someone else. Sure enough, with just her 8 crayons, Velvet had drawn the most beautiful apple the children had ever seen. Little by little, the things that Velvet said and the things that Velvet did began to make sense. The teacher had Velvet speak for 2 whole days about her rock collection. She even had ashes from a real volcano. Still, on the day that she handed out invitations to her birthday party, the whispering began. "I bet her house is old and dark," Sarah said. The thought of going to Velvet's house made everyone feel a little uneasy. Velvet lived in a tiny house at the end of a long road, and there was no jungle gym or tetherball, just a swing hanging from an old tree. At the door, Velvet's mom and dad politely asked the children in. There were no birthday magicians or wizards, not even a clown. But they got to turn Velvet's room into a castle. The royal subjects painted their faces and put glitter in their hair. They jumped high off the bed into a blue moat. Velvet's sisters made each of them golden crowns colored with bright jewels. They took turns wearing Velvet's royal cloak, which used to be a bed cover. They took turns playing cards and shooting marbles, and Velvet even showed them how to draw beautiful apples. On the last day of school that year, Velvet's classmates brought their teacher handfuls of flowers, cards they had made, and an impressive collection of nice-looking rocks. It's true, Velvet was different, but maybe she wasn't so odd after all. We'll sing the children out now to their class with the children's benediction printed in the back of your hymnal.
Go in joy, go in peace to meet the day. With hope and arms embrace life's wonder. We will guide you, we will love you on your way.
Good morning. Bill Brock here, he, him pronouns. Now today, unlike the hot dog hat that so readily identifies the fantastically fabulous food, fun, Fair, folks. I come wearing my invisible Right Relations Team hat. No, the hat is not the bald head of a 67-year-old guy. It is invisible. And I'm here to highlight the survey we unveiled in this week's Intercom. Back in May, we hosted a workshop led by Lisa Presley of the UUA Mid-America region to kick off our effort to craft our church's first ever relational covenant. The draft we created from workshop feedback is included in the Intercom this week. Please look for it, fill it out, and submit it. Our relational covenant is our expression of how we intend to be with all we encounter here, members, guests, and staff. Along with our bond of union and our mission statement, it's intended to be a unifying statement of common commitment. And we'd love to have every member's input. There'll be other means of giving that input. We'll continue to include it in the Intercom. We'll be mailing it out to every member with a link to the survey. We'll also host a meeting for church members specifically to get feedback, yet to be scheduled. We hope to bring a final version of the covenant to a vote at the annual meeting this spring. In addition, part of next week's forum will include a discussion centering on the draft covenant. Thank you.
Susan, wouldn't you like to get away?
Yes, I would, Joe.
Well, Susan, the perfect way to get away is to become a part of Circle Suppers. Do you know about Circle Suppers? A place where everyone knows your name and they're always glad you came.
I've been to a couple. Why would I want to go again?
Well, well, you will get acquainted with even more people, and they also will know your name.
Tell me more about doing it. How do I do it?
You mean doing it again?
Yes, doing it again.
Well, you simply go to the Intercom, which is on an email you receive every week, and sign up.
Who else will I meet at these events now that I've already done it?
Well, good question. You will have the privilege of getting to know even more wonderful, caring people from our church.
Will we drink together like before?
Well, you might be offered a drink, but for sure, you'll have a supper and you'll get to contribute to the supper each time.
How do I know I'll like these new people and that they'll like me?
What's not to like? They will be youers and or friends, and they are lovable. And of course, they will love you.
And they'll even know my name.
You got it.
I'm signing up today, once again.
You can do that right outside in the foyer this very day.
Okay, and one more little announcement. Walter would like people to finish or to fill out the survey on faith formation for adults classes. Thank you for those of you who have, and please do for those of you who haven't. Thank you.
Does the world say that you don't look the right way? Does the world say that you're just not enough? Does the world say that you're not in the right spot? When it wants you there but not here, and tells you all the things you are not. Well, I've been there too. It's hard to shut my ears to the noise. Yes, I've been there too. I don't stand a chance if it's me in this world all alone. Oh, the chatter is deafening, too overwhelming, hard to find my way home. So take my hand, don't let go. Does the world say? Does the world say you don't think the right things? And does it say that you're not worth the time? You are not worth the time. Does the world laugh? Does it laugh when you fall or when you cry? And does it turn the other way every time you walk by? Well, I've been there too. It's hard to shut my ears to the noise. Yes, I've been there too. Oh, I don't stand a chance if it's me in this world all alone. Oh, the chatter is deafening, hard to find my way, hard to find my way. Take my hand, don't let go, don't let go, don't let go, don't let go. Take my hand and don't let go. I'm growing and I'm learning, I'm loving and becoming. I'm growing and I'm learning, I'm loving and becoming. I'm growing and learning and loving, becoming, and I don't stand a chance if it's me in this world all alone. Ooh, the chatter is deafening, too overwhelming, hard to find my way home. Ooh, I'm growing, I don't stand a chance if it's me in this world all alone. I'm becoming, the chatter is deafening, too overwhelming, hard to find my way home. I'm becoming, take my hand. Take my hand, don't let go.
I'm Ellen Taylor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. We are a community of memory and hope, a community of hands and hearts. We gather to share our laughter and our tears and to bear witness to one another as we journey through sorrows and joys. Last Sunday, January 21st, was the first public exposure of any of Sarah Chang's original musical compositions, a contemporary UU hymn they composed this past summer. They want to thank everyone involved in last spring's transgender inclusion in congregations workshop and other small group ministries that have helped inspire it. Bruce Martin for additional harmonic suggestions, Melody Bloom for engraving and accompanying it, Reverend Meredith for trusting using it in a service, our dear choir for helping introduce it, and you for embracing it. They're so grateful to have shared that milestone moment with this community and look forward to sharing their first hymn with the broader UU community in the coming months and years. Anna and Coleman Jackson, who are new to our congregation and aspiring members, have both a joy and a concern to share. Their joy is that Anna is expecting their second child. Their concern is that she currently has hyperemesis, I think you say, and is really struggling right now. Coleman asks that you keep their family in your thoughts. Last week, longtime member Susan Jellinger fell on the ice and broke her wrist. She's in some pain and now has a cast and is hopeful for fast recovery. Cards are welcome. Last week, my husband, Harvey Harrison, had outpatient surgery and he's recovering well. No cards or calls are needed. And finally, our staff member, Birch Spick, has a joy to share. They have accepted an internship with First Universalist Church of Denver to begin in September this year. They are currently interviewing with sites to do their clinical pastoral education over the summer, and that placement will shape where they and their fiance Dylan, when and where they leave Des Moines. Please keep Birch and Dylan, please wish Birch and Dylan well when you see them, and keep them in your hearts during this season of great transition in their lives. If you need contact information, speak to me or another member of the pastoral care team, or email pastoralcareteam@ucdsm.org. And I will have cards out at the desk for the original folks I mentioned earlier. Let us now share together the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. You may call the name out loud or type it into the chat. As we share these names, may the love of this community hold them all. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May we not look away when we're needed. May the grieving be comforted, the weary find rest, the broken places healed, and joy and laughter be abundant. We light 3 candles, one for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, one for those shared in writing, and one for those held silently among us.
Please join with me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of life and love, Spirit of transformation. We cry with the psalmist, "How long?" when we look on the suffering of beloved people, the ways that we pit ourselves against one another. Our hearts are broken by the incidents of human violence, the devastating mix of war, poverty, and winter in Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Gaza, Palestine, heavy fighting in Somalia after an al-Shabaab attack, deadly ethnic and religious clashes in Nigeria, cartel battles in southern Mexico between 2 rival cartels displacing entire communities as they flee for safety. Here in the US, walls of division grow as election season intensifies. We grieve for senseless loss of life as the news relates to us calamity after calamity. Children dying of starvation due to famine in Ethiopia. That's downplayed by the government. The fatal basement fire in a shop in Xinjiang, China. The detainment and vandalization of party offices of opposition activists in Venezuela. May we have courage as we seek to be people of transformation. May we be inspired by examples of transformative courage, such as the hand-in-hand integrated school and community programs that are located in Gesher al-Hawadi, Galilee, Jaffa, Haifa, Kfar Saba, and Jerusalem, Israel. The bilingual Hebrew and Arabic schools bring together Arab and Jewish children to heal separation and fear. And such as the Mennonite protesters who gathered in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda to sing hymns calling for peace and ceasefire. May we be mindful of the violence, the pain, the loss, and the grief of our world, and also mindful that all of us are immersed in an ocean of love. May we name injustice. May we soften our hearts. May we speak truth to power. And may we be filled with loving kindness. For what has been said, and for all that we are holding silently in our hearts today, we observe a minute of silence.
The reading is adapted from Francis Di Bernardo, describing the work of Sister Margaret Farley. In her treatise, Just Love, a Framework for Christian Sexuality, Ethics, Sexual Ethics, Sister Margaret Farley observes that the Church's teaching on sexuality is based in an act-center morality. What is judged good or bad is an activity. She proposes that the church adopt a relationship-centered morality. What is judged good or bad is the quality of the relationship between people. Accordingly, Farley enumerates 7 principles. 1, do no unjust harm. Harm would be physical, psychological, spiritual, relational. Harm can be a failure to support, to assist, to care for, to honor in ways that are required by reason of context and relationship. The second principle is free consent. This rule rules out force and also less dramatic forms of violating free consent: manipulation, seduction of people who are immature or have special dependencies, or loss of ordinary forms of power. Truth-telling and promise-keeping are important here, as deception and betrayal are coercive. Third principle, mutuality. Both partners give and both receive. Both are active and both passive. Fourth, equality. What is needed for equality is an appreciation of uniqueness and the difference of the other, and for each to respect each other as ends in themselves. Differences of social and economic status, of age and maturity, of professional identity, or of interpretations of gender roles don't automatically violate equality, but do require attention to ensure equality in the relationship. And fifth, human relationality offers the potentiality for knowing and being known, loving and being loved. Commitment is a means, not an end. And 6, fruitfulness. Reproduction is not the only way a relationship may be fruitful. Love between persons violates relationality if it closes in upon itself and refuses to open to a wider community of persons. Without fruitfulness of some kind, any significant interpersonal love becomes egotistic. And last, social justice. Regardless of the sexual status of persons, they have legitimate needs for incorporation into the community, for psychic security and basic well-being, and make the same claims for social cooperation as anyone else. Just to draw attention to one of the most important parts of our service, we come to the offering. Our Faith in Action partners are Free Store, which helps provide household items to families recovering from domestic violence and other trauma, and the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund, which supports trans and gender diverse Iowans as they access gender-affirming care. World Community of Peace, Liberty, and Justice for All begins in our hearts, in our homes, and in this, our congregation, as a place of peacemaking, fairness, and free religion. We are a people of faith called to build peace and justice, understanding that violence is any thought, word, or deed that treats a being like an object or diminishes a being's sense of value or security. We are called to the work of ending violence. Our congregation guides us in cultivating inner peace and the skills of compassion. The love and commitment that we show each other here waters the tree of peace, liberty, and justice for everyone, everywhere. From the resources we have, then, let us offer a portion to maintain and build this congregation.
Last week, I talked about queer theory and about how plastic and socially constructed sexuality is. Today, I want to follow up by reflecting how ethics interacts with all of that. In my lifetime, the acceptance and understanding of LGBTQ people has changed a lot. There's been a dramatic expansion of sexual liberty. There is still fear and hatred. As of last spring, there were more than 400 proposed bills in states across the U.S. that aim to restrict the rights, freedom, and fair treatment of LGBTQ people. Liberty can be frightening. What might help address the fear is to understand that the universal acceptance of LGBTQ people would not mean that anything goes, would not mean there were no longer any standards of sexual ethics. But the principles of sexual ethics that serve us now are different from those in the past. The ways that we love, with whom and how we express love, are so intensely personal and private, yet societies have always sought to regulate, to channel the energies of romantic attraction because those energies can be destructive, violent, abusive. Human libidos can disrupt social harmony. Love should be personal and private, yet we also need guidelines to define and protect that space, because the drives that can express tender affection can also express in ways that harm and are socially disruptive. Liberty is a tremendous good, and at the same time, society has an interest in fostering stable relationships. Free-ranging sexual energies, like the stereotype from earlier generations of sailors on shore leave looking for a good time and getting into fights, can be harmful. A whole society of everyone acting like that would be miserable and unsustainable. Love needs liberty, yet it also needs justice. Cornel West, speaking about general social justice, said that justice is what love looks like in public. We can add that romantic love needs to be what justice looks like in private. In the world into which I was born, the world of the 1950s, the prevailing attitude was that sexuality be channeled through recognizable forms of courtship and thence into heterosexual marriage. Sexual ethics used to be simply only within marriage. And marriage was understood as a set of 5 tightly linked features: creation of a household of 2 adults, sexual exclusivity to within that household, production of babies, raising of the children, and perpetuation of the parents' genetic lines. That was the package deal. And naturally, the 2 adults had to consist of 1 woman and 1 man because that was what producing babies required. Being married implied all 5 of those things most of the time: a 2-adult household, sexual exclusivity, making babies, raising them, passing on the genes. If every once in a while an infertile man or woman got married, or a couple past childbearing age, that was okay as long as that was the exception to the rule. The basic model that those 5 went together remained intact. The sexual ethic then was to support the package deal, uphold the idea that any one of those 5 parts ought to imply the other 4 as well. So, don't make babies outside of a 2-adult sexually exclusive household, but do enter into 2-adult exclusive households, and once there, do make and raise children. Those were the norms. Thus, the sexual ethic included such principles as no premarital sex, no extramarital sex, and no sex that wasn't the kind that procreates. Over the course of my lifetime, those previously inextricable features of marriage have come apart. And with that dissolution, the old sexual ethic has faded. The arrival of reliable birth control was a huge change, and that's been within my lifetime. The year I was born, 1959, was also the year a pharmaceutical company, Searle, sought FDA approval for the birth control pill. I was a toddler. Yay for pharmaceutical companies. I was a toddler when the pill came on the market, and of course had no idea what that was all about or how it was going to change things. Reliable birth control meant that otherwise fertile opposite-sex couples could, as they chose, form a household together without producing or raising babies. At the same time, various other social forces brought about a rise in out-of-wedlock births and single-parent families resulting from producing and raising children without the two adults making a household together. You can have marriage without sex and sex without marriage, which was always fairly common, but in recent decades has lost much of the stigma it used to have. You can have sex without babies and babies without sex, the former through the aforementioned new technology of birth control, and the latter through new technologies of artificial insemination and surrogate motherhood. Through adoption, you can propagate your genes without raising the children and raise children without propagating your genes. The package deal has come undone. And with it, the sexual ethic that supported that package deal no longer compels. And yet sexuality remains as much as ever a powerful force that can bring us into our wholeness or break us into little pieces. As much as ever, we need a way to say what's okay and what isn't when it comes to romance and sex and coupling. Things that weren't regarded as okay in the 1950s have become okay, and at the same time, things that used to be okay, or at least fuzzy, have become more clearly not okay. The change is illustrated by how we see a certain iconic photo taken in 1945. You've probably seen it, amid the celebrations of America victory in Japan. The photo shows, amid those celebrations in Times Square, New York, a U.S. Navy sailor embracing and kissing a total stranger who appears to be a nurse. She was actually a dental hygienist. At the time, the image was seen as a delightful expression of ebullient celebration. What was seen then as simple, joyful jubilation, we now see as sexual assault, normalized. In the 1940s, consent was not so strong a part of our sexual ethics as it is today. Along with some things becoming okay that didn't used to be, other things have become not okay that did used to be, and as our sexuality has morphed in the wake of the coming apart of the 5-package deal that used to be the meaning of marriage. Our private relationships and our public relationships foster each other. In both cases, it's about treating people in ways that respect and honor them to facilitate their flourishing and our own. This requires understanding, it requires compassion, and those are skills that Unitarian Universalist congregations exist to help develop. Whether the issue is hate or the issue is love, the need is justice. Respecting and honoring personhood, flourishing by helping each other flourish, liberation from domination. Our bodies are themselves unique vehicles of potential liberation and fulfillment. They are integral parts of our identity. And when our bodies love, the first awakening of love may not be a matter of choice. It comes upon us unbidden. We fall into love. And yet love can certainly be directed by choice. Even in the beginning, we can influence our loves by, as Sister Margaret Farley writes, choosing to pay attention to certain realities or not, putting ourselves in a position to discover lovableness, choosing to believe even if we do not yet see in the value of persons or of anything in creation. We can identify with our loves and freely ratify them, We can also repudiate or defer some of our loves by choosing not to identify with them. Where there is choice, there is space for ethical reflection. How shall our liberty embrace justice? Justice means equal respect, and yet the concrete meaning of respect must be tailored to cultural differences and to individual differences. Justice is a social concern, including romantic and sexual justice, and sometimes it's a highly contentious social concern, as we saw, for example, in the Supreme Court nomination hearings for Clarence Thomas in 1991 and Brett Kavanaugh in 2018. We all have a role to play in creating a favorable social context for personal integrity, freedom, flourishing, and thus for individuals to choose love that is true and also based in justice. A Catholic nun, of all people, has done thoughtful and helpful work in articulating sexual ethics in this context, where the old sexual ethic recognizably does not serve us. Sister of Mercy Margaret Farley was professor of Christian ethics at Yale Divinity School, and her book, Just Love, was denounced by the Holy See for moral views which opposed the teachings of the Catholic Church. So it's got that to recommend it. The reading that Barb shared gave a summary of the norms that Sister Margaret Farley offers for love based in justice, and we'll take a closer look at those norms after our break. Ethics isn't law. Ethics is a field of philosophy. It's a discourse in which we try to tease out from the contradictory mishmash of culture which parts to try to uphold more consistently. Its usefulness is not in settling questions, but in simply trying to help us think through the questions for ourselves. I think Sister Margaret Farley has put her finger on some excellent considerations as we wrestle with what justice requires in our intimate relationships. So let's look further at the principles that she offers. First, do no unjust harm. Harm can take many forms: physical, psychological, spiritual, relational. It can also take the form of failure to support, to assist, to care for, to honor. In love and in its sexual expression, we are uniquely tender and vulnerable. So acute attention to the risks of harm is called for. Sexual expression is highly variable, and just because something is repulsive to you or me doesn't make it wrong. Pain may be a part of sexual expression, and for some folks it may be particularly central. Bodily damage might be a part of that. Sexually related cosmetic surgeries also constitute bodily damage. So we can't simply say do no harm. What we can say is do no unjust harm. And that's the overall guideline, the overall ethic, the first rule. The other points are for clarifying what unjust might be. Second, free consent. Justice requires autonomy, and without free consent, there's no autonomy. Consent seems such an obvious principle that it's remarkable how much the emphasis on consent has grown in recent years. And it's worth remembering that there has been resistance. It wasn't that long ago, it was in 2010, that fraternity members at Yale University gathered outside the campus Women's Center to chant, "No means yes." Seduction or manipulation of persons who have limited capacity for choice because of immaturity, special dependency, or loss of ordinary power violates free consent. But seduction is complicated. It's certainly not wrong to try to make yourself attractive to a prospective mate. It's not wrong to lower the lights, put candles on the table, and Barry White on the stereo. Promise-keeping and truth-telling are aspects of honoring free consent, since betrayal and deception limit the free choice of the other person. If promise-keeping and truth-telling are honored, and neither party has limited capacity for choice because of immaturity, special dependency, or loss of ordinary power, then I'd say we're in the realm of wholesome courtship rather than ethically problematic seduction. If alcohol is going to be involved, then the consent should be clear at some point before inebriation. But whether ethics requires that it be clear before the first glass of wine starts to get a bit fuzzy. Certainly, the clearer the consent and the more clear-minded the judgment of both parties when they consent, the better. Moreover, we may be of partly divided mind when it comes to romance. Part of you may be feeling ready to jump in, while another part of you is not so sure. Yes, we teach our children, you're the boss of your body, but this boss is sometimes a divided internal parliament. So I think the consent requirement needs some help from the further guidelines like mutuality and equality and commitment. And so third, mutuality. Ethical sexual expression involves mutual participation. What we're talking about here are the old ideas of the male as active and female as passive, the woman as receptacle, the man as fulfiller. That's a violation of the mutuality principle. True relationship entails a context recognizing each partner's activity and each partner's receptivity, each partner's giving and each partner's receiving. Mutuality need not be perfect, but it does need to be present in some degree. Two liberties meet, two bodies meet, two hearts come together. And if they're both putting heart and self into the encounter, if either partner is overwhelmingly passive, hardly participating, it isn't mutual. Fourth, equality. Justice in love means that the partners bring roughly equal levels of power and autonomy to the relationship. Inequalities of power may come from differences in social and economic status, or differences in ages and maturity. Teachers and their students have an inherent power inequality, so do counselors and their clients, ministers and their parishioners. It's not that such inequality shouldn't exist, just that they shouldn't exist in a romantic relationship. The principle of equality also rules out treating a partner as property, as a commodity, or an element in a market exchange. Thus, prostitution is unethical on grounds of violating equality. Ethical sexuality may include all manner of role-playing, but if a partner is an actual element in a market exchange, that's not playing a role. It's an inherent inequality. Any overlap of the sphere of paying people for goods and services and the sphere of sexual relationship, any blurring of those spheres compromises our flourishing. Equality, like mutuality, is rarely perfect. The ethical concern is that the power be balanced enough, as Farley puts it, for each to appreciate the uniqueness and difference of the other, and for each to respect one another as ends in themselves, and not a means only. Fifth, commitment. The important consideration is that any sexual encounter be entered into with an openness to the possibility that it may lead to a long-term relationship. If it turns out to be a one-night stand, that in itself is not an ethical violation, as long as it was entered into with an openness to the possibility that it becomes something more. As Sister Margaret Farley writes, sexuality is of such importance in human life that it needs to be nurtured, sustained, as well as disciplined, channeled, and controlled. Brief encounters cannot mediate the kind of union of knowing and being known, loving and being loved, for which human relationality offers the potential. The rhetoric of commitment can get overblown, and it is worth remembering that particular forms of commitment are themselves only means, not ends. Nevertheless, as Sister Farley reflects, given all the caution learned from contemporary experience, we may still hope that our freedom is sufficiently powerful to gather up our love and give it a future, that thereby our sexual desire can be nurtured into a tenderness that has not forgotten passion. We may still believe that to try to use our freedom in this way is to be faithful to the love that arises in us, even the yearning that rises from us. Thank you, sister. Sixth, fruitfulness. The ethical sexual relationship bears fruits. Traditionally, this has meant procreation, but there's a deeper underlying principle of fruitfulness, that the relationship not close in on itself. The sexual encounter occurs behind closed doors, but not in a social vacuum. Love brings new life to those who love, and that new life is to be brought outward to the nourishing of other relationships. A relationship of both love and justice strengthens the partners and encourages them in their work in the world. Thus is the romantic love fruitful because it serves the good of all. And finally, we should note that sexual ethics includes obligations that everyone in a society bears to affirm for its members as sexual beings. There are claims of respect that all of us are called to honor, respect for the many forms that human sexuality may take. Single or married, gay or straight, bisexual or ambiguously gendered, old or young, abled or challenged in the ordinary forms of sexual expression, they have claims to respect from the wider society. justice in love requires not only that we bring certain principles to our own romantic and intimate relationships, but that we participate in making a society that honors and respects romantic and intimate relationships. The principles of justice do not stop at the bedroom door. In fact, they go through that door in both directions, entering to inform the sexual encounter and, strengthened and affirmed there, exiting to inform all our relations. Justice, as Cornel West said, is what love looks like in public. Recognizing, however, that love can take corrupted forms, can be manipulative, domineering, and abusive, we do need to add that love must look like justice in private. May it be so. Amen.
Please join us now as you're willing and able and rise to sing hymn number 95 in the gray hymnal, There Is More Love Somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Please say with me our unison chalice extinguishing words. We have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace.
And now, for those of you who see God, may God be with you. For those who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for those who seek a better way, may the path be found and the courage to take it step by step. Go in peace.
Yours the religion which like sunshine